The PSLE result have just released, so the next big question is, how do we choose our preferred secondary school? And to answer that problem, we first have to look into these two questions, which are first, how do you submit your school choices, and second, your strategies when choosing secondary school. Let us start with the first question. When do you submit your school choices? And for this year, this will be the time duration. And to put it simply, this is just 1 week after your PSLE result, which is likely today. And after that, you will receive an option form. And this option form will decide which secondary school you will get enrolled into. And this brings us to our second question. What are the strategies of choosing secondary school? And let us first have a look at how does this option form look like. And if you have a closer look, you will see that the first part are just your personal information, and then at the end there will be your signature, parents and guardian signature, and then finally, this third part is the most significant part, as you will have to rank your preferred secondary school from 1 to 6, and this will decide which secondary school you'll get enrolled into. Now, before we can fill up this form, there's one very important fact that we have to understand. Is that if two students score the same AL score, then if there's only one place remaining for that particular school, then they have to challenge for that school. And how does this challenging system work? Well, they call it the tiebreaker system. So let's have a look at how does this tiebreaker system works. Well, if two students have the same AL score competing for the last place in the school, well, then first, they will have to look into your higher mother tongue language for SAP schools. Then, if you have the same higher mother tongue language marks, for example, higher Chinese language, or if you're not applying to SAP schools, then only it will look into your citizenship. As we know, Singapore citizens come first, and then permanent residents, and then finally foreigners. And then if you have the same citizenship, then you'll have to look into your choices order of school. So this is why the ordering when you're filling up the previous form can be very significant. And then finally, if all this fails, then it will go through a computerized balloting, which is a completely random process to decide which school you'll be allocated. Now, this should be something that we try to avoid, as we know it will put you to a school that could be very far away from your home, or the cutoff point might be significantly lower than your PSLE score. So with this in mind, how do we choose our school? And here I have collected the previous cutoff point from 2021 and 2022 from the 20 secondary schools here in Singapore. And they are separated by IP program and non-IP program. And for those schools that have the same cutoff point, they are being put together, but with no who comes first and who comes next. Okay, they are just going to be put into one group. So over here, we can see that for Methodist Girls School's IP program in 2022, the PSLE cutoff point is 4 to 6. Now, what does that really mean? Well, does that mean that if I have a student who scored AL6, then in this particular year, then I can guarantee myself that I can enter this secondary school? Well, the answer is a big no. This 6 simply tells us that in 2022, the lowest marks they have enrolled for the students is 6. But doesn't necessarily mean that if you get 6 in that particular year, you will get enrolled. And this bracket over here, those are the marks for your higher Chinese language. As we know, all these are SAP schools. So now we have understood how does this table works and what does it mean to have the PSLE cutoff point. The next natural thing that we might ask is that, so now how do I choose my school? Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say I have a student who has an AL score of 7. Well, my question is, should this student try to apply for these 3 schools ranking as his first choice? Because we know the cutoff point from previous year is higher than the AL score that I get. So basically, I'm expecting that there are some fluctuations between the cutoff point so that maybe this year I would be able to enter these schools. Now, what are the benefits of this? and what are the consequences of this. Let me zoom in a little bit so that we keep the first few schools and we still stay on the same question. Now, if I have a student with AL 7, should I aim higher than my AL score by applying to these schools? Well, let us do a quick comparison. Let's say if I have two students, both of them getting AL 7, and this is how the first student ranked his school order, and this is another student. Now, in the worst case scenario for these students, right, if, let's say for this year, Raffles still only enroll students for AL 6, then this student will lose his opportunity to enter his first choice. So now it will have to look into his second choice. But at the same time, there is another student with the same AL score but ranking ACS higher than these students. Now, if these students have the same citizenship as these students, then guess who will be put first? Well, there's definitely these students on the right. So this happened if the first students didn't get the first choice. So it seems like that if I am higher than my AL score, then I'm somehow sacrificing my choice order for the other schools that I have more chances to get in. So how should I compensate for this? Well, what we could do is that if I want to reach higher to those schools that the cutoff point for beyond my AL score, then I might have to compromise by sacrificing my second choice and putting my third choice as my second choice. Then only if two students ranking NJC as their second choice, then I will be more likely to get put first before those students that also rank NJC in the second choice. So, but at the end of the day, should I aim higher become the question. Now, we can see that over here, there are two types of strategy. One is that we can be more aggressive by choosing a school that has a higher AL score, but in doing that, I will have to sacrifice my second choice so that I'm at the same levels as the other students. We are on the same stage. Or should I be more conservative on my strategy by going this strategy, where I don't try to aim higher, but I'll just stick to those schools that I'm very confident that I can get in with the cutoff point just fall within my AL score this year. So the more aggressive strategy or the more conservative strategy, well, it all comes down to your background. If, let's say, you have a very high score for your HCL and you're also a Singapore citizen, then what you could do is that you can go for this case. You can try to aim higher and by sacrificing your second choice. Or you can also be more conservative if you are not Singapore residents, maybe a permanent residents or foreigners, and you are not so sure about whether you have a good HCL marks. And for those cases, then I would recommend that you go for a more conservative strategy. So it all comes down to your background. If you are a Singapore citizen and you have a high HCL score, then you should aim higher because that opens up more opportunity for you. But if you don't have a very high HCL score, or if you're not a Singapore citizen, what I would recommend is that you stay to the more conservative strategy. Alright, so to wrap that up, here are the strategy for choosing your secondary school. For your first choice, of course, it will have to try to reach for higher school. Those may be slightly higher than the AL score, or maybe those that are just enough. And second, for your second choice, you are going to play your strength. Make use of a HCL score. And for your third and fourth choice, you try to secure your place for those schools that fall within your range. And then for your fifth and sixth choice, there's a typo, you have to try to avoid balloting. So if you'd like to learn more about PSLE and choosing your secondary school, make sure you scan this QR code to join our study group. That's it for today, and I'll see you soon.